Mm.
I was surprised to hear.
Hello, so it's nice to meet you all here this evening. I represent the Blue Dream Democratic Club. We're a club of Democrats that are also cannabis activists. So basically liberal, progressive cannabis activists. If anyone in this room meets that description, we'd love to have you. But this is one of our sister organizations. We love supporting Americans for Safe Access, which is a patients organization. And we love participating with California Normal, which is for legalization. So it's great to be with you all here tonight. Tonight is going to be a political evening. We're going to be having a political panel. So it's very exciting. We hope you listen to these candidates, hold them to the fire, make sure they understand our issues, and hopefully then get out there and help them win so that we can get more access in San Diego. So thank you very much for having me here this evening.
I'm a council member for the City of National City. We were able to pass, as you all likely know, our cannabis ordinance last year. We have a chance to amend it every year, so this next year we'll take a look at it again. But I'm also running for mayor in the City of National City, and I've been an advocate and proponent of the cannabis industry. And we want to make sure that we have safe practices in our city, as well as making sure we have good vendors that operate out of our city. So, yeah. Am I supposed to say something else?
No.
If you
We're right now in the process of opening a lounge for any storefront in National City.
Yeah, to my understanding, November 16th is the meeting that will be, 3 of the licenses will be brought back to us as a council for final approval. They are currently in negotiations with city staff and the applicants. So 3 of the 6 will be coming to us for final approvals, likely November 16th.
So that's a good date for everybody to remember if you want to support that and for National City.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So as I keep knocking on doors, and you all probably run into this a lot, there's a lot of misconception about the industry. There's a lot of misconception of what it means. I mean, I'm thinking through a conversation I had a couple days ago with a resident who was adamantly stating, I can't vote for you. I like you, you're great, but you are also supportive of cannabis. And we have a 10-minute long conversation about why he feels like we are corrupting our society through the support of cannabis industry. And I said to him, look, I've lived in a whole bunch of places around my life, San Diego, National City, back in Coachella and Indio. I can find a weed dealer in a 2-block radius anywhere I live.
Real
So
talk.
it's like, guys, we cannot hide ourselves from the reality that already exists. And for me, part of the reason why we need to legalize this industry is because we want to make sure that some of the operators that may have materials that can be very harmful to others are not in operation, right? So we take these off of our streets and we actually legalize an industry like we've done, you know, in the past with alcohol, right? So I think it's important for us to change the perception, the public perception, and even candidates like myself that are very outspoken and vocal and supportive have to continue doing that work. But I think it's going to be an ongoing struggle, especially in a city like National City, where, you know, I think Prop, oh God, what was the prop? Statewide 64? Sorry. Prop 64, it actually went 50-50 in National City. So we do have a lot of folks that still see it very negatively. I think that's changed recently in the last couple of years, but it's important that we continue to do the work to make sure that we change public perception of what the industry is now and the benefits from actually legalizing the industry.
What are some other ways that you're able to push forward that education to change that perception?
Yeah, so now we are about to provide the licenses, right? And I think part of the issue that we've had in the region is after the licenses are provided, so in the city of San Diego, you know, it brings in close to $30 million in revenue. Where does that money go?
We all want to know.
Well, probably the general fund.
The general fund. And where does that go?
To the slush fund.
It's like, okay, well, let's think of that, right? Because then it kind of gets disseminated into every single department. And you know, some departments are bigger than others. And so at the end of the day, what can we account for this particular industry starting in our city? What benefits is it actually bringing into our community? Can we point to things and say, this is what this new industry is funding in our neighborhoods? Or is it being lost in the general fund? And so I think that's an important conversation for us to have. It's something I've been advocating for now. You know, as mayor, I will make sure that we have a robust conversation about where the funding goes and appropriate it to things that the community needs, right? I mean, let's do outreach plans and surveys and say, what do you need? We've done some of that already, we know what we need, but it's important to engage people so we can make sure that that money is reinvested into things that are very tangible and people actually see it and understand it, right? And they don't just see this as a you know, corruption of our society, but something that is already happening, right? Let's not be blind to it, and look at the benefits that this actually brings into our community.
Excellent idea.
How do you have any plans to support social equity in terms of rolling out a campus plan in National City?
Absolutely. So this past year, when we passed, last year when we passed the ordinance, we made sure to include local ownership and local hire. So we are asking our folks that receive the applications to strive for 50% local workers. And then we also ask for at least 2 of the licenses to be majority owned by National City residents. And so we want to make sure that as much as we can, the money stays local, the jobs stay local, and the ownership stays local. Because we are one of those communities that have been hit hard by the war on drugs. And as a result of that, many of our families were torn apart. And you know, we need to make sure that we reinvest back into the neighborhoods where our you know, aunts and uncles grew up, and cousins grew up without a family member in the household because they were arrested for marijuana possession. So we were pushing for local hire, pushing for local ownership, and we included it in the provision. We also make sure that any place that has over 10 employees has to have a project peace agreement. So they are essentially represented by unions and have you know, a good living wage.
What type of technical support is the city providing to social equity license holders after they obtain their license?
What do you mean by that?
Business resources, business acumen 101, teaching them how to do their finances, all business components that we need cannabis business and the industry.
Right.
For instance, Vermont, they provide technical support to all the license holders as part of their big back and fund program. So is the city offering that to social equity licenses?
I mean, honestly, it's not something that's come up. It's not something that came up during the discussion, but it's something I'm certainly open to allow new operators to run a more efficient business and be able to run a tighter ship. So, but that's a conversation. Yeah.
It's something that's needed.
Right.
That's a missing component in a lot of the programs right now. That's what I have seen out there.
Right. No, I hear you. No, thank you for bringing it up. I hadn't heard it before, but it's something we're pursuing for sure.
Thank you for addressing that. We have some really important people in this room. There's a lot of information to be had from all of us. And we did expect, go ahead, Sonara.
Oh, no, it's okay. I already finished. Yeah, I have a question for him, but.
Go ahead, and then I'll continue. Go ahead.
Well, well, it was more of a comment. I just wanted people to know that, you know, I've been part of a lot of the legalization efforts in local cities around San Diego. And one city that I really kind of shied away from tackling was National City. Because, as he said, National City was one of the very, very few cities in the entire county that Prop 64 didn't win outright. Right? So, you know, we've been working on IB forever and Encinitas because there, Prop 64 got like 67%. So activists from National City would come to me and they'd say, hey, can we do something? And I'd be like, yeah, but move slowly. I think you guys should be conservative. Like, maybe we just stick to like some of the supply chain things, a little bit of manufacturing, some indoor cultivation in the industrial zones. I don't think National City's ready for this. But there were 2 council members that weren't ready to hear that. And one of them is standing before you tonight. And they were like, no, we are ready. Times they are changing. We're a majority minority community, which means the majority of people in National City are not white. They're people of color that have been affected by the drug war. So Marcus Bush, who was the other council member, who's a member of our club, both Jose and Marcus are members of our club, he was like, heck no, we're going for it. And they did. And National City is the first jurisdiction in all of San Diego County that has proposed lounges. And they did that themselves through the city council. So, you know, I really appreciate the braveness of their stance here. And I think it's going to work out great for them because, you know, regulated access has worked out great for every city that has attempted it with honesty, right? You see how all the benefits it's brought to La Mesa, to San Diego City. The cities that want to implement it have just seen great things happen. And I talk to the council members all the time in IB, and they've only got 1 dispensary. We thought they should have a few more. They've only got 1, but they say, you know, it's one of the nicest buildings. They made that intersection and that entire area. It actually upgraded the area. So I just wanted to add that. I want everyone to know how special the situation in National City is because the council is driving this. We didn't have to run an outside ballot initiative, and they're driving it farther than any other city. So just want to give that little.
It was very kind of you, Samara. Thank you. And yes, there's a lot of tough conversations that we still need to have with our community to make sure that we push in this direction. But I'm glad to stand alongside Marcus Bush, my fellow council member, to make sure that we push the issue further. We can't just be blinded to the reality that exists around us, and we need to make sure that we regulate the industry as much as possible so that it's a safe industry to be participating in. So.
Thank you so much for talking with us. Is there anybody else?
We are actually, we've been operating a balanced budget for over the last 7 or 8 years. We are blessed to have 2 major drivers of funding into our city, including the mile of cars. So if you've bought a car, National City, that goes into our general fund, and Plaza Bonita. So Plaza Bonita Mall is technically National City. So all of the sales that go out of that retail shop come into the city as well. So we actually do have a balanced budget. We have had one for years. We also instituted a 1% additional sales tax about 15 years ago. That brings in anywhere from $8 to $10 million a year. That has helped us provide competitive wages to our employees, as well as invest in some of our infrastructure. So we do have a good budget. We anticipate bringing in $2 to $3 million a year from this, which in a city like ours, that is about 2 to 3% of our general budget. So it is a significant boost. And the question is how we're going to actually allocate it. I want to make sure it's allocated towards things that are tangible and that are needed in the community.
And that's the key, so long as you protect the project.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we appreciate that.
Can you tell me, you talked about the drug problem. Can you tell me, is it methamphetamine? I don't know what it is. I'm new in this area.
A drug problem?
In National City?
I was alluding to
In the area?
just weed
In
sales in the
general?
neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's so
It's
many.
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And we would be
But in
blinding
Southern California, I
ourselves.
was just wondering if it was different than where we're from, Silicon
No,
Valley.
it's really the same anywhere else.
Okay.
At least anywhere else I've lived. I lived in South Park, North Park, downtown, East Village, National City, back in the valley. I lived in like 10 different places. It's all the same. Within a 2-block radius, you can find somebody.
Prescription pills.
You found something.
That don't have stable homes. They don't have families, and they've been kicked out because they've been kicked out because they're LGBTQ, part of the LGBTQ community. That's an overwhelming amount of folks that we see out on the streets. And so the drug abuse that occurs is a substance that they are trying to cope with the reality that they are living through. And so it's important that we look at this holistically and say, somebody is experiencing deep emotional issues. We need to support them, and they are self-medicating by using drugs, right? So it's important to realize what's happening in the individual's life. And the reason I mentioned, legalizing in the industry and then thinking of where we put those profits is because I want to make sure that money is reinvested back into the neighborhood and supporting families that are struggling, where parents are having a difficult time to make ends meet and have their kids that are unsupervised after school. because as any regular kid, unsupervised, you get into trouble. And you hang out with, a different crowd at times. And I was one of those kids when I was in high school, So it's important that we provide avenues and outlets for kids to stay active and engaged. So us as a government, we need to make sure that we offer something, programs for kids to be active and engaged while they may not have supervision at home. And support families as much as we can in order for them to have a family structure so they can actually raise, healthy kids, right? Emotionally healthy children, and not be in a situation where, we see adults now that are homeless, and you try to have conversations with them. I do as much as I can, and there's like a sob story somewhere in there. It's a terrible story somewhere in there, and so it's important that we address that, but at the same time try to prevent what's already occurring now, which is essentially a group of young people that after 2008 did not have any programming after school. So think about this. Many of you went to school, right? I mean, high school. Did you stay after school for some programming?
Yes.
Was it free?
Yes.
That doesn't exist now.
Wow.
That doesn't exist. Think about it. So there are very few programs that came back after 2008, after the big housing crisis, and we had very little programming offered after 2008. So you had kids, we've had a generation of kids that don't have outlets, right? And I'm not worried about the kids whose parents have the opportunity to get them involved in something and pay for something. I'm worried about the kids whose parents are too busy to keep an eye on them and they have nothing else to do, right? Or they don't have a strong kind of family nucleus and then deviate as a result. So I hear you, and I agree on a whole bunch of issues. I just think it's important to look at, the homeless issue, the issue of drug abuse, in a holistic manner, and supporting our families.
So on the business perspective of it, how is this ever, I don't know if you can answer this question. The Small Business Development Center has provided amazing resources when you're creating a business. However, as soon as you mention anything in the cannabis industry, you're restricted from any access to, they don't even want to consider continuing the conversation with you.
Right.
And that's another thing that I was mentioning in like the structure of it, of a lot of people are wanting to jump into the industry, but just as like it was mentioned previously, there's not a clear structure or guidance for us once you're in the cannabis industry.
Right.
For that reason, it made me create two separate businesses, which creates more chaos for me in the end. And I would like to streamline it, but in order to keep getting guidance from the Small Business Development Center and other government resources, I have to have something separate that I could talk about in separate books to show them and have these conversations to learn.
Right.
Because if not, as soon as I mention, I do a paint and puff, they're like, until federal guidelines catch up with us, we can't talk to you anymore. Well, this is kind of one of those areas that make it difficult. And as a parent, I have mouths to feed, and I need to get it done now. And as a parent, I also don't want to get sued or do something incorrectly.
Right.
So the guidance and support is greatly.
Our National City Chamber of Commerce was very vocal and supportive of the industry years ago. I mean, they started pushing for this 5 years ago, having community workshops, engaging. Jacqueline Reynoso was then the CEO of the Chamber National City. So I think there is a will, even with the local business community, to continue to support. And I mean, there's a will from us as a council and elected officials now to continue to push. The reality is also the need to have federal legislation change to make sure that the industry is fully legalized and no longer seen as a hard drug like many others. So I think it's that fight still needs to continue, and we need to lobby our federal elected officials to make sure that happens. But if there's more that we could do, I mean, let us know. But we granted 6 permits. We will likely support 3 of them soon. And I mean, our business community is behind it in National City.
We thank you as a group.
I just want to come across with a couple of points. I mean, we're
probably smoked a bowl with most of you guys, or at least a bunch of you. And we're all totally pro cannabis, and we follow all the developments in the law, so we're all insiders, we know this. But this is information that is not broadly dispersed. I think that a majority of Californians figure, look, weed is a phone call away or a trip down to a store that's not all that far away. Just relax, chill out. You know, there's no big deal. There's no reason for all of the continuing blood, sweat, and so on and so forth. But that is just so wrong. NORML was started in around 1970. The purpose being then in 1970 to mobilize public opinion to be in favor of legalization of cannabis. And their mission statement today, 2022, well, it's the same. The federal law hasn't changed. It's just so crazy. Biden's recent announcement a week or two ago, directing the agencies to re-examine what type of regulation should exist for cannabis is such a flashback to the Nixon era in 1972. We were talking about that a little bit before the meeting. If you Google up, go to Wikipedia, the Schaefer Commission. That's what the Schaefer Commission did. But the conclusion or recommendation of that commission was that no, cannabis was not harmful. It doesn't need to be regulated in the Controlled Substance Act, and submitted the report to President Nixon. But President Nixon knew that his political opponents were all pro-weed, and by making the substance that they probably had would give the government the power to conduct searches, raids, and put them in jail, and have control over his political opponents. So that's what our national policy of marijuana is today in 2022. It's still based on that. So we have the opportunity, or at least the government does, I don't know who's going to be the members of the people that are going to re-examine what's the right role for cannabis. But wow, what a deja vu. We're back in 1972. NORML, National NORML, does an excellent job of keeping its pulse on legislative powers in Washington, D.C. So if you wanted to know the particulars, go to the NORML national website and you can be brought up to date. Want to give some attention to Cal NORML as well. Dale Geringer, who's been the director of Cal NORML, God knows what, 20 years plus, just has done an excellent job of running Cal NORML and having all kinds of useful information at your fingertips. So if you want to look at what's going on in Sacramento, Cal NORML is the place where you can find out that information. And why would it be important to change anything in Sacramento relative to cannabis? Okay, well, I'll cover that in 2 minutes, right? One of the stated purposes of Prop 64 was that it's going to replace the unregulated cannabis market. Well, when was that? That was 2016. And now we only get regulated, legal, lab-tested, safe cannabis? No, not even. The unregulated market still substantially exceeds the licensed market. So it just hasn't happened because of excessive local control, excessive regulations generally, and high taxes. So those are the issues that plague the legal cannabis market. So there's all kinds of a need to improve what Prop 64 started. I have to give my opinion on Prop 64. I mean, it is what it is, and we just need to still make improvements of the law. With regard to local legislation, then, it's awesome that you have candidates here on the local level. I had the privilege to speak to Tiffany Boyd Hodges, I believe her name is, who's running for San Diego County Board of Supervisors, seat 5, and you know, and she has a doctorate in a scientific discipline, has done studies of the cannabinoid system, and it was a wonderful person to talk to, and she has a nuanced knowledge of cannabis and seems she does support cannabis, so I think it's great that she's running, and I wish her every success. You had made a point about finding increased educational opportunities. One of the things that she said when I spoke with her was that she wanted to work with Palomar College so that they would develop a cannabis business education program. So that underscores the importance of putting politicians in power at the local government level, or Sacramento too for that matter, that can inspire programs at colleges to provide greater educational opportunities. But, you know, there already are, of course, you know, business colleges, and I've seen that there are cannabis classes at several law schools already, as well as activist organizations at law schools. So, you know, the tide certainly is turning to make things better for cannabis entrepreneurs, patients, and like myself, people that just enjoy smoking weed. You know, for me, it's just all about celebrating the joyfulness of weed, and I hope that everybody has a wonderful journey.
Joyful holidays.
3 years. He's been a chief for 3 or 4. He's actually retiring next year, so we'll be looking for a new chief. But he's actually been very willing to sit down and engage with everybody. So he's actually very open-minded when it comes to the issue, and yeah, so he's been very open about it.
What was his name
My
again?
approach has been this: in order for you to go ahead and know what you're doing with your dealers, growers, whatever the case might be, you need to know, like you said, the community, as well as the help behind you. Something goes down, who are you going to call? It's not the fire department, right?
Right.
I also approach them too. I put one with the other. Thing is, I'm trying to go and do a fundraise now for all of San Diego. I mean, that means every city, Escondido, National City, as far as San Fernando Valley. I mean, we're going to do all of it at one time. I've been talking to law enforcement for like, oh my God, about maybe two and a half months. Also, we have a nursing prevention staff also. We were supposed to go up to LA with us, and they didn't go. They also didn't make it to the last event that we went to and came back out for a different situation, but I don't want to even disclose that. But I've been working with the local law enforcement for a long time between here, Canada, San Jose, oh my God, and everybody's they're willing to come all the way out here. I've got people as far as like, what's it called? Seattle, Washington. So when you guys start regulating, let us know.
Yeah.
Everyone's got the same exact problem.
Right.
I'm trying to do the whole West Coast if I can, from here down to there. That not ending, clear one problem up, clean the rest of it all up.
Right. I mean, I don't want to speak for our chief.
Based
but
on
he's
medical,
been
so
very
I'm saying,
open
based on the medical.
To, yeah.
I'm just saying it's an idea, and it's working right now, though.
Thank you for sharing all that, Raven. Those are all really important things. We can break out into different groups of whoever wants to back that up
Okay.
at another time. But right now, I'm gonna just say thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming to talk to us. We are happy that you feel the way you do about 420. And of course, everybody here, don't forget his name when you get ready to vote.
Thank you.
Again.
National City, I wish I could vote for you.
Jose Rodriguez in National City.
Okay.
Yeah, and running for mayor. I'm a council member now, running for mayor. Election is in 2 weeks. You all should have received your ballots.
Yes.
And if you haven't, you can actually go to any polling site and just vote.
Thank you so much for your time.